So hey everyone, yeah, that's gonna be my first talk here. So I hope everything is gonna be okay. So who am I? Actually, this is a question since ancient Greek, right? Many philosophers were, anyway. So since the couple of last years, I was the winner of the NGDE and NGPA conference tickets here in this meetup. For I don't know why, but I'm always winning the tickets. Maybe this time I'm also gonna be able to win the tickets. Let's hope for that. And I'm actually just an Angular developer at the Aqua Healthcare. It's here in Vienna. You may know Aqua by at its best time it was producing films, right? So if you're still doing some analog photography, you might still see some stuff, even though it's discontinued, sadly. So let's just instantly jump to the topic. So what might be wrong with the toSignal function in Angular? And as a disclaimer, there is nothing really serious wrong or something. So everything that you're gonna see here today is mainly just like a developer experience point of view. So you can do everything with the toSignal. It's just good as is. But maybe there are some particular cases like edge cases where it's like kind of fiddly to make it work properly with the signals. So let's just pick a very bad example. It's a bad example because there are good solutions for this already. It's a good example because it's a very easy one. So I think it's going to be easy to understand what is actually the problem and what is the solution here. So the whole situation is fairly easy. You have a wrapper component and the loader component. The wrapper component obviously is just passing something in the loader component, and the loader component is receiving it in the input that required. Right? The input required is already a signal, and I hope is it good enough? It's big enough, or should I? Is it good? Okay. So so as you can see, the wrapper component only has the URL, and in the template is just passing the URL to the other one. So the loader component, or whatever the name is, doesn't really matter. It's getting the URL and the required, and then it's just with the URL, it's calling the HTTP client.get. This one gives you back an array of string, and then it's instantly in the toSignal here. It's using the URL, right, which is an input required here, and it has some default value and so on and so on. So it all looks good, right? You actually don't use anything else, just a signal, or you basically, in the component, you only see signals. In the template, you are consuming signals. You are not consuming the HTTP answer, and so on and so on. So what is wrong with here is that whenever you do this, that is just the connection. So the URL is the connection between all this stuff. So if you do this, there is an exception, right? Have you ever found this exception? Good, because then it's not just me. That's already good. So it's maybe going to be useful. So you have this input required, but no value is available yet, right? Why is it happening? Is that because the toSignal is whenever you're calling it, it's instantly subscribing, instantly consuming everything, and then gives you back a signal, right, based on that. So in that particular case, the problem is that this is in construction time or in injection context, right? The toSignal is used in injection context, but the URL in injection context, which is an input required, is not yet ready, right? So it's only ready after or in the ng1 init life cycle and not prior to that. So that's the problem here. Of course, you can have an easy solution for that, which is a very ugly solution, to just not use the required on the input and put a default value on it. Then you are good to go. It doesn't really matter. But we want to keep the required, right? That's the definition of the API definition of our component. So if you check the Angular, oh my God, where am I? Free spinning wheel. Do you have it on your mouse? It's useful, but not when you are doing a presentation. So if you check the Angular IO errors page, then it says that access the required input in reactive context. So that's one fix, right? Just access the input in reactive context. Alternatively, just access it in the ng1 init lifecycle, because that's already ready there. So let's try the first approach. which was from the original website. So if you want to do it in a reactive context, you can either wrap it into a computed or in an effect, right? So that's solving the issue. You don't see that exception thrown anymore, but you get another one, right? Because the toSignal cannot be called within a reactive context. So the first fix that they wanted to push on us is actually not working, which makes sense because toSignal, whenever you are calling the toSignal, it creates a subscription every time. So it would be a mess and a lot of memory leaks if this would be allowed to do that. So okay, so the fix 2 is basically that it should be moved to the NGO unit. So what we see now is that we have still these components here, or whatever that we want to have with the signal, right? But now it's not read-only anymore, because if you want to avoid it, that it's going to be a string array or an undefined, that you have to put something in the signal, so it's not going to be undefined anymore, right? And then afterwards in the NGO unit, when you call the toSignal and you assign it to the subcomponents, it's basically just overriding this one, right? So this signal which you originally used here is basically gone. It's not anymore. You only use that one just to avoid some question marks and undefined and this kind of stuff. In my opinion, this is not really nice. The subcomponents is not read-only anymore. You have to use the initial value in 2 different places, and so on and so on. So what you can do is that you have these subcomponents as a read-only. It's a signal, it's a writable signal, right? So you create another signal which is called here, the response here, as a toSignal, and then you create an effect. So based on the response, if it's not undefined anymore, you can set the response value to the subcomponents. And then, of course, because it's a HTTP client GET, it's going to be completed, so you don't have to care about additional updates from the toSignal. So what you do is that you instantly just terminate the effect reference, because it's always good to terminate everything as soon as possible. Effects are kind of like subscriptions. You should keep them alive just as long as you actually need them, right? So this is a solution. This is working fine. But it's not anything better than the RxJX can provide, right? It's actually RxJX, it's just so simple. You get the HTTP client GET, and then you just put it in an async pipe, and you are good to go. So it's just basically the fixes is to just use subscribe and observable, right? Because it's just easier. But then it's just losing the whole thing for the toSignal, right? So toSignal in that particular case is just worse than using the original RxJX implementation. From Angular 19, you also have the resource. So this is why it's a very bad example, because it's already solved. But it's just an example, right? Use Rx method. Do you use Rx method? It's a very cool function. Just use it. You can solve it very easily, very nicely with Rx method. But let's think about that those two are not existing, and because of this example. And what I did is basically all of them, but afterwards I still spent a lot of time to make it better, to have a better developer experience in my company, so people were not going to get, furious about using a toSignal in that particular case. Because in our company, as how we resolve different kind of resolvable components was basically always causing this issue. So this was a serious issue for us. It was almost preventing us to go with the signal approach. So let's just do a bit of coding. And I have the implementation here ready. This is the same as what we saw there before. You have all these things. The subcomponent is just doing this, right? It's the easiest example as possible. This is the outcome. So where you have some random stuff. They are printed in the which goes through the for loop, and then that's all. So it's a very simple one. So what I did is that I created something which is I think easier to use in this particular case than the toSignal, and maybe in other cases also. And then since I thought that it actually might be useful for everybody else, I just copied this company property and pushed it in an NPM library so everybody can access it. I hope my boss is not listening. We'll see. So instead of having this signal and subcomponents or whatever that we have here, I created a new type of signal, which is which can be initialized by not the signal keyword, not the computed, and not the resource, but it's called the bindable. So what it's doing, it's actually returning a bindable signal. So now you have this subcomponent, right? And the bindable signal has two special methods. There is the bind to and the unbind. And the bind to can accept a source which is either an observable or either a signal, right? And then the unbind is just a void. So, which means that if you have a subcomponent like that, and you want to use the toSignal, then you can use it in the ng1 init. You can just bind it like this. So you have the subcomponents, binds to, and all of them is good. And I'm probably missing something here. So we have the
toSignal is there. You don't need it anymore.
I actually needed, yeah, right. Yes, of course. Okay, what's the next one? Yes, of course. So so this one is returning a to-do, which means that I need to map it, right? So that's it, and it's doing the same thing. So the whole thing with this bindable is that whenever you create it, it's already getting everything which is necessary. For example, if we roll back to the previous version, we saw that in the toSignal you had to inject the injector, and you had to do all this kind of stuff. Here you don't have to do it because the bindable, whenever you create it, it already gets the injector and already gets everything. So whenever you are calling the bind to, you don't have to do anything anymore. It has a default value, and it only updates whenever the HTTP client actually, or like the source here actually emits anything. So basically, this was our solution or my solution to make it a bit easier. You don't need the injector anymore. You don't need all this kind of stuff anymore. And it's working this, oh, I clicked on the wrong button. So it's working the same as what you can see. So what I wanted to do is to dig into it, how it's actually working. So you dig into the implementation because you don't really see too much of it. And because it's, in my opinion, using a quite nice solution, which is already, it's not, I didn't came up with this solution. It's also how, for example, the deep signal is working. So it's just signal and some additional other things on top of it. How the implementation actually works is that you have this bindable function. And oh, yeah, sure, of course, I'm sorry. So we have this new type, the bindable signal, right? It accepts a type. And then it's actually a writable signal and these two methods. So this is the key thing here. So whenever you call the bindable signal, so whenever you call the bindable signal, as you can see, it's asserting some stuff so you don't do something stupid. And then it gets the injector, and then from the injector it gets the distro reference. But you can also pass it later on, so you don't have to create it in injection context. You can create it anytime, just like with the toSignal. You just have to pass the injector. And you can have some options like you don't want to use neither the destroyer from the injector. You can just use manual cleanup, so you are making sure that you are actually cleaning up your bindable signal by calling the unbind method, right? So from that, you basically have some references for the updaters, which are later going to be coming. Unbind is just destroying everything, but here is the bind to thing. So the whole solution winds up into this bind to, and if it's already bound, of course, it's going to throw an error. It checks if it's a signal, right? And if it's a signal, it checks if the injector was undefined, because in the effect you have to use the injector. But that's already coming whenever, so it's already injected whenever you just call the bindable. So whenever you call the bind to, you don't have to care about the injector anymore, it's just there. And you can also use it if the source is not a signal. In that case, you have this operator function, and that operator function, if it's a manual cleanup, is just a pipe. But if it's not that, then it's gonna use the take until destroyed and the destroy reference. So basically, the bounded observable is gonna be automatically destroyed, so you don't have to care about it. And basically, afterwards, you're just assigning the bind to and the unbind functions to the bindable signal with the object assign, and then you basically have the solution. So why it's better? It's that it's in general, in my opinion, this is like a cleaner approach. You didn't have to create an effect. You didn't have to manually destroy the effect once after it was firing. And it's just in general, in my opinion, it's just nicer. And you didn't have to use the injector. It's just all done here. You don't have to care about it anymore. Also, because this is using a subscription inside of it, this bind to thing, whenever this one is essentially completing, then you also don't have to care about to destroy the subscription reference, not like in the previous solution when you had to destroy the effect ref to make sure that it's as short-living as possible. So there are some other use cases that we found. So just to make sure that you know that it's not just about the HTTP client, because it's not relevant actually anymore, but that was the easiest thing. Especially if you ever use the Firebase and you get this collection path and value changes, and then you have to pass inputs usually in the component, and then based on that it's doing something. You can only do it later on. They are all returning observables. You have to convert them to signals and so on and so on. So for this particular case, it was very useful. But also, we found out that in some particular cases, when we were using from event, so why we are using from event is, and why not just binding something to the in the HTML or doing like a host listener, is that in from event you can actually set that if you want to use it in the capture phase, right? But all the rest is not providing that option to use an event in the capture phase. So we are using from event quite a lot, and it was annoying. So that's the next thing. So the bindable was useful for that thing, but I was also thinking about how to create something like the from event, but which should essentially return you a signal. So basically a signal-based from event. So you can imagine, that's another example, but it's basically the same as what we saw before. So in the loader component, you don't have just the entries, but you also have like this very easy add button and some text input there, right? It's very easy. And yeah, this is how it looks like, right? You basically have the view child. We know that the view child is returning a signal, and then you want to read the element reference. And in the so in the template, you actually you can see that it's behind an if, so which means that the view child is basically returning an undefined until, or the signal is returning, the signal value is undefined until you are loading all the subcomponents and so on and so on. Sure, but I actually also will show it in the VS Code. So, but yeah, I can imagine this is very hard to see. So let's just switch to VS Code. I think that's easier. Oh yeah, first dash. Damn, I forgot to save. Yeah, let's revert the changes. So this is also a very bad example, but just bear with me. Sorry for it. But here, as you can see, there is this add entry. How it looks like now, it's like this, right? You have this add entry, and then afterwards all the rest. And that's a view child, which means that it can be an element ref of whatever and then undefined. It doesn't really matter. And then I was thinking about how to resolve this problem because it's if I want to use the from event and if I want to use something from the from event, for example, I'm getting the input value, right, with the resource, how is it called, a result selector, then I want to use it. Currently, it's just a console log, so it's just a very bad example. But if I want to use the input value somewhere in a signal, I want to store it in a signal, then it's basically not that easy to do. Because first of all, I have to have an effect, which is reacting on the add entry, which is the view child, right? So the add entry can be undefined, but if not, there is it should have a native element. So if the add entry component is not undefined, then I can add the from event, right, for the component itself. And then I can specify some result selector, and then afterwards I can do something with it. And if you use the onCleanup method in the effect, that means that whenever the add entry changes, or whenever you are decommissioning the whole component, it will be called. So in that particular case, the destroy source or destroy subject is going to be called, which is responsible for taking care of the tearing down the from event as that. So it doesn't do too much currently because of that. The console log is just logs here what's happening. Of course, it's so small. So if I added something here, then you click it, it's doing it. So in that particular case, I was thinking about to make it come up with something which is kind of like the from event, but it's instantly giving you back a signal, and you don't have to care about it at all. It's based on signals. It has nothing to do with the NGRX solution and so on and so on. How much time I have? Not much, right? Or when did I start? I'm sorry, I kind of lost. Okay, I will continue. So I will not have, I think I don't have too much time, so I will just try to check out the already existing commit instead of implementing it. And the implementation is basically there. So you have, just like with the bindable, you have another function that you can call. It's called the signal from event. So it's not from event, it's signal from event. You basically have to specify the event name. And then afterwards, you can add the target, you can add the result selector, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, it has all the functionality as what the from event has, but it's doing a bit more. So how it's doing a bit more is, for example, the target is not anymore just something which has event listener or have a target add remove, has event target add remove. So it's not a native element, it's nothing like that. It's from now on, it's a signal of an element reference, which means that you don't have to get the add entry and then dot native element and so on, like with the from event. You can actually pass the complete signal, which is coming from the view child, to the target. And then whenever it's ready, it will automatically detect it, that it's ready, and it will prepare and create all the event listeners that it's needed. So that's the new solution. So you saw how long it was before. You had to use all the effect ref and whatever, and you have to use a lot of stuff. But now it's just basically that. And it's in construction time. You don't have to care about it. You don't have to care about having the view child in the after view in it, having you don't have to wait for anything because this one internally waits for everything. So I want to show the implementation for the signal from event also. How much time I still have, guys?
15 minutes.
Good, that's perfect. So it's in the same library as previously. I don't even know if I mentioned the library, but I will mention it. So this is basically returning an event signal, and the event signal has an attach activator and a deactivate. So the attach activator basically means that you can always attach and deattach the event listeners from the element. So that means that you, for example, in the from event, whenever you attached some of the event listeners, the only way to get rid of it is either to completely cancel the from event or add the filter in which particular case you didn't want to be interested in the results. Now you can just attach an activator, which is also a signal, and based on the signal value, it can deattach and reattach the event listener. So this is a more performant solution for that. The listener that you are attaching is the target itself is a signal, right? So the element reference is a signal. This is why it can automatically react to make sure that the target is already ready. You don't have to put it in the after view in it. The event name also is a signal. So the event name is like click, mouse up, mouse down, and so on. So you can actually put it in the signal and change it, and it will remove the event listeners and add it. So with one signal from event, I was able to completely implement a unique dragging function by just changing the event name itself. So this one specific stuff is can do a lot of stuff, and then a lot of documentation, and then some exclusions for typing. And kind of the same approach as what we saw previously. It gets the injector, it gets the distro reference in particular cases when it's needed. And then you have the option target, right? So that's the listener target. It's a signal. You can either not even pass the target, and then if you are not passing the target, it's immediately getting the element reference of the component. So you don't have to specify the target if you don't want to. You can specify the target as a signal, and you can specify the target as just something which has a native element, right? And then you have the event name as a signal, and then the result selector in the from event in the original implementation. Not many people are using it, but it's like a map function. And yeah, and then I think I'm running out of time. But the whole point is kind of like that. And I have I want to still show something, is that whenever you actually try to activate this and like to listen to something, then in the attach activator, it checks if the listener target is undefined, then it's basically creating a proxy for the listener activation, and that activator proxy is waiting until the listener target is defined, and then it automatically, in this method, just attaching it. So this is why you don't have to wait until the target is ready. And then it's doing a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, I don't have too much time for it.
You have more time, sorry.
I have more time. All right.
You have 15 minutes more.
15 minutes. Okay. Okay, where was I? So yeah, so it is actually doing everything automatically, and like what I said is that this example, for example, is using the signal from event. So what we just saw, and it's only one signal from event, what doing everything, which is reacting to user input, and it's basically this, right? So you click somewhere, it doesn't really matter, and then afterwards there is a text which is draggable, and this is with one from event, which is the signal from event, and everything is by that. And how it's working is that there is a component, doesn't really matter, which has this hello event signal func loop, and then there is an if statement just to make sure that the view child is undefined in the beginning, and then afterwards this app child has some style attribute, and then the style attribute is like making sure that the drag coordinates is corresponding to the translation, right? So what you have here is that you have some signal, which is the enable view child, doesn't matter. You have this view child signal, right? And then you have an activator, which is also a signal. And then you have the currently listen type, which is also a signal, which can either be all the event types, right? The event types here is defined as it must be a mouse down, mouse move, or mouse up, just to make sure that we can drag. And there is this drag signal. So what the drag signal is essentially doing is that from a mouse event, it will give you back an x and y coordinate, right? And based on that, this currently listen type. So this is the event name. The event name in initialization phase is mouse down. And then afterwards, the target is just a signal, right? And it's all in construction time. So it's not after viewing it or whatever. And then there is a tap function, because I really like tap functions, because side effects are the best. No, actually not, but there is a tap also, if you can use it. I'm using the tap. Come on. So I'm using the tap. So whenever the event type is a mouse down, I'm setting, so there is the currently listen type, which is a signal. I'm setting it to be a mouse move and the mouse up. Because in this particular case, not like in the from event, where the from event only accepts one type of event name, right? This one is accept an array. So you can actually use it for multiple event listeners. So this one is listening to mouse move and mouse up in the same time. And then afterwards, if the event type was mouse up, it's just doing something random, whatever. And then it resets the currently listen type to mouse down. So therefore, this is basically the whole thing, which is re-implementing the wheel, right? Because you obviously have drag. So drag is already implemented very well in the Angular material and CDK and whatever. So this is re-implementing the wheel, but it's just showcasing all the different functionalities this signal from event can have.
Sorry, when is this side effect executed? So what's the trigger for the tap function?
Every time when the event listener fires.
So this means that the currently listen type, or the event that you're listening for.
The event that you're listening for. Exactly. And then in the result selector, as I told you, it's just a map. It just gets the event and gets the page XY. It doesn't matter. There is an initial value just to make sure that there is no undefined. And then the drag coordinates is using the computed to get the transform translate from the drag signal, because it's a signal, so you can create a computed or effect or whatever. And then in the constructor, I'm attaching the activator. You don't have to use this activator thing. You can just say in the option, for example, here, there should be also another one. Yeah, here the signal from event, you can add an option that it's activated by default, so you don't have to manually activate it or deactivate it. It's just doing everything based on the life cycle of the component. And then basically that's it. I think I kind of hurried up the end, but I hope it was a good showcase what it can do. And maybe if you find it interesting, you can just use it, because it's from the ngx signals plus library that, as far as I know, at least 2 people are using. I mean, in the company, of course, everybody is using it whoever dare to do this kind of very weird stuff. But in general, That should be it.
Wonderful talk. Everyone that asks a question is automatically in our Ruffle Tombola special prize program. That's a microphone. How many of you have a question? Oh, first question. Here we go.
Hi, so without downgrading the work for the bindable signal, I just wanted to ask, because it's really awesome, that in the end you couldn't solve it that in construction time to assign that the get, HTTP get request, right?
No, you can't do it because the problem there is that in construction time, it's trying to use an input required. And that you can't do.
But can't
So it
you,
wasn't about the HTTP get, it wasn't about anything.
but can't you, I know that it's a signal, but can't you make some default value or accepting until undefined and don't do anything, but when the value comes?
Yeah, that's so either you're gonna create an effect, which is basically doing that, which I also showed an example here somewhere, that it's actually possible to solve it. So I'm not solving something that is unsolvable or wasn't solved by the toSignal. I'm solving it in a manner that I think it's probably easier to do than this one, right? Just to make sure that it's properly doing everything. So it's possible, and it's not about the HTTP client. It's really not about that. It was just a stupid example. It's all about this URL here. That's the whole thing. Because that one is an input required. And for the input required, you cannot put the default value.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
More questions? Hands up.
Here you go.
Thank
you.
Take some time to bring thinking back again.
Firstly, nice talk and also a nice solution. You've mentioned that there's already existing solution with the resource for the bindable, but for the other example, is there anything that Angular will provide, or did you add the feature request at Angular?
I haven't had the feature request or so on. Yeah, maybe actually there is. To be honest, I haven't checked. I was just trying to solve something. But it's a good question. No, I haven't did anything, but maybe there is already a feature request for that.
Because maybe you could add your solution to the actual source code of Angular.
I don't know. It's kind of a different style than what I saw in the Angular code base. I'm also using, for example, unnecessarily the RxJX library because I wanted to make it like as versatile as possible, and that's something that the Angular team would like to, just avoid using in all costs in the future. So this is just not compatible with the way as how Angular tries to evolve, but could be a source for an idea. I think that's the best what it can do. But until it's not resolved by general, you can just use it. It's just there on NPM.
Also, thank you for the talk. One question maybe it was 3 parts, right? Like the middle part where you had this add entry and try to subscribe to an event.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't understand the use case exactly, but is the use case that you have that you don't have access to the source control of the component, so you could use an output?
Exactly. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell.
Okay.
It's a more broader way that I wanted to mimic a scenario where you have like some material, whatever, that you don't have good event listeners or whatever that you cannot. So it's not like an Angular library that you want to use, but it's like a common component you're trying to use. I'm sorry, I completely missed that part, and you are right. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you for reminding me that.
Welcome.
that was the main part actually from the second.
Okay, so the solution would be, if you have access to the source control, to have an output and have from event on the output?
Of course.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
thank you.
But this one was also just a bad example, just an easy example to showcase. All of them everything what I showed you today, the original source why I did implement these were nothing like this, right? So these use cases are not the actual use cases why I had to implement them. They were, of course, more complex. It's just to showcase one stupid thing that how it can be useful.
More questions here.
First of all, well done. But I want to ask something. The from event, the signal from event one
Yeah.
that you showed, what was for me really interesting that the syntax looked really seemed like resource. I mean the old resource, not the new resource. With the target and then the executor and so on. And I wanted to ask for the bind for the first problem that you saw that you showed the bindable. For that one, I had also similar issues with the input required, but not with the get method, but with something
Yeah, we
else.
also not
Yeah,
had
exactly.
the-
But isn't there any did you consider maybe to do the same approach? Because in the way that you solved it, you already first assigned it to a value, and then later on you did the bind to, and then you passed the. But it will get and then change the toSignal. But isn't it possible? Did you went to that way that maybe in the constructor level you set the value that I want to listen on this signal. This will be the function that you want to execute, and that would be and as a third part, like as optional, like initial value. But then you don't have to something similar to resource. Again, that example, there is resource already, so I'm not talking about especially that one, but something like similar to that you don't have to later on bind something to that, and you can just immediately say that will be something that I want to listen to.
Yeah, that's also a good approach, to be honest. It wouldn't be too hard to implement, because you can just always say that, yeah, whenever the input is there, you can check that if it's available or not and something, and then later on when it's available, just create an effect loop for it, and then afterwards you can just do it automatically.
And one other thing, wasn't it possible that that might, I'm assuming, that maybe link signal could actually solve the first issue?
Probably I never used them.
Because then link signal you can.
So we are now at Angular 18, so that's,
yeah,
that's
okay.
a hint.
Okay, yeah, true. That's true. Okay, yeah. But yeah, then never mind. Thank you so much.
Link signal is I'm sorry, I really haven't used the link signal. Is it only binding to signals, or is it binding also to observables? So I was just asking about the link signal. Is it binding to a signal, or is it binding to an observable?
Binding to the signal.
Yeah, this one is binding to both. So.
More questions here.
Actually, I have a question because I'm also really interested in signals recently. And I have a question. Did you try this kind of approach with examples, like, for example, rebound, like the debouncing, the like typing on the keyboard and waiting for the response, for like something that would actually require some time involved in that? Because like obviously get will just emit one value and then that's it.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering whether there are some proper approaches to something that will emit value after value, or like on some not necessarily equal time ranges and so on.
So the thing is that I didn't want to re-implement everything which is in RxJX, which is actually handling asynchronicity way better than what you can do with Signal anyway. So if there would be some sort of debounce or throttling or something, I would still just fall back to the RxJX version. So it wasn't my intention to completely replace the RxJX. But actually, there is a very cool library which is kind of doing the same thing as what I'm doing, and they have specific, like, they created a wrapper for a signal that you can put into it, and then afterwards you can use the pipe, and they re-implemented the pipes, which, not all of them, but some of them, which is already in RxJX, that you can use, and they are not using RxJX, they are using very plain JavaScript basically to mimic. So that's also available. I don't know by heart what is the name of that library, but I can look it up for you. I think so. I think that one is. Yeah.
Actually,
It's a different one. NGX extension is really just a scope you can do RxJS code. What he means is like
But there is something.
There is a wrapper.
they rebuild.
Yeah, there is something like that. Later on, I can.
Yeah, I'm just asking out of curiosity because actually RxJS is a great library and I really like it.
Absolutely,
It's just, I was just curious because I was also trying to do that at some point and I was just wondering whether it even makes sense to
I can maybe also jump in.
yeah.
I love the topic. I'm a really big RxJS fan, and Signals and RxJS are completely different things. RxJS is a synchronous programming
Yeah.
library,
Yeah.
and therefore, as it is synchronous, you can also do asynchronous stuff
Yeah.
with it, scheduling, all the things. And Signals is a fully asynchronous library. If you look at the code, it looks sync, right? But in fact, the A plus B that we have in the composition is just like scheduled on promise and then executed all at once.
Yeah.
So, so there's no way ever in your whole life that you can do something asynchronous with a signal.
Yeah.
It's by definition like it's impossible. And what you have to do is you have to exit signals. If a signal in the effect gets executed, affects the tail end of this reactive chain. Then you have to exit the whole thing and then do whatever you would do normally, like using native browser APIs or RxJS, and then you have to jump back to the signal.
Yeah, that's basically my experience and my attitude towards that as well. I was just wondering if there is another opinion on that.
Every shit show to do,
Yeah.
like to even combine it with anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions?
Can I have a question so I get the Tombola ticket?
What question do you have to your own talk?
Was I hearable also at the back? I don't know. Random question, thank you. I actually have this.
I see it coming.
I actually have this issue that I'm usually getting very like silent at the middle of the talk, but I hope I managed to not do that now.
It was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Can we get another round of applause?